Hey, I'm Tyler Glenn from Neon Trees, and you're listening to Main Pod Girl.
Hey, welcome to Main Pod Girl, a podcast made by Popheads for Popheads. Every episode, we'll be diving into all kinds of pop culture topics with some of our favorite artists and music commentators. I'm your host, AJ Marks.
And I'm your guest co-host, purveyor of sleeping with my friends, an absolute animal for anything colorful, Ree.
And we're so excited for today's special guest. He's the lead singer, keyboardist, and songwriter of an essential pop rock band. Their songs Animal and Everybody Talks are massive staples of early 2010s pop, and they've toured with everyone from The Killers and My Chemical Romance to Maroon 5 and Taylor Swift. Our guest today is also a Broadway actor, having starred as Charlie Price in Kinky Boots. Please welcome Tyler Glenn of Neon Trees.
Hi, y'all. How are you?
Good. It's so great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
So let's start off with what we're listening to. Reed, do you want to go first?
Yes. So right now, I am not sure if anyone else here has heard it yet, but Ava Max just put out a song called Spot a Fake. And I cannot lie, I am a little cracked on it. I love it very much, and I can't wait for her next project. So
Me either. Friend of the pod, Lolo, wrote that too. She's also a great artist.
Oh, we love Lolo.
Yeah, love Lolo. I've been listening to a lot of, obviously, Sabrina Carpenter, but also Girls by The Dare is just so good.
Yes.
That's something that really kind of hit me out of nowhere, and I'm a big fan of that. What about you, Tyler?
Are you familiar with Magdalena Bay yet?
Oh, yeah, we had them on the podcast.
We are huge fans.
Cool.
Yes.
Loving that record, and I'm still on the Sabrina wave. Like it's not easy to like put down. It's just so good. So definitely into that.
It's really a little bit of everything in the best way, you know?
Yeah, I thought Ariana's record was going to be the one this year when it came out because I just love her, and then
Me too.
And then obviously this year has been insane for our pop girls. So the Sabrina one kind of has, touches of the Ariana, touches of Casey Musgraves, touches of, Taylor, and it's this perfect blend. And it's such an invitation to like her personality and world. I'm sure you've covered it, but for me, it was, I didn't like really get into her. And then there was just it felt like such an invite into her like whole orbit. I've been having such a fun time with it.
Yeah, it's a great one for people who like haven't really gotten into her yet, and also for longtime fans.
Yeah.
It feels like sort of an upgrade from Emails I Can't Send, because that was like her first like bigger project. She had her hits off of it. So proud of her. But this is really like her like explicit, like This Is Me album. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
And it does remind me of Casey Musgraves as well. Please, Please, Please is incredibly Casey coded.
Yeah.
I love it so much.
It's almost what Casey should be doing. Sorry, no shade, but I miss her quirkiness a little bit.
So anyway, we're here to talk with you about the new Neon Trees album, which I'm so excited by.
Thank you.
I actually have a fun little question that I like to ask people. If you had to personify each of your albums as though they were people in a friend group, how would you describe them?
Ooh, I love that. Habits is a bit like your youngest friend in the friend group that thinks they know how everything works in the world, but like hasn't quite figured it out yet.
Yeah, a bit angsty.
A little angsty. I would say Picture Show is the sort of artist friend that maybe doesn't listen to everything that the friend group listens to, and kind of is bringing maybe older references or older records to the mix. I would say Pop Psychology is the loudest, most colorful queer friend in your friend group, maybe the one that like is kind of unabashed,
Me.
is excited. Yeah. I Can Feel You Forgetting Me is probably the headphone wearing sort of goth kid that sort of maybe doesn't come out as much with the group, but makes an appearance every couple months, and you're always worried about them. And then this new one, I think, is your oldest, most wise friend in the friend group that maybe has been through a good amount of shit, but still has a little fight in them, a little zest.
Yeah, I feel like this new record would probably be like the leader of the group.
Feel that. Cool. Is it because it's the latest one, or does it
just feels like they're a little bit of everything into one, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
I actually think it might be my favorite Neon Trees album.
Oh, hell yeah.
It's that rare thing with a band where each new album I think I like more than the last one, which is
Cool.
just so fun of a journey to be on, you know?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, this album is intentionally self-referential, and I think there's threads of that in the visuals, but also sonically. And I don't know, I hope that's the case every time we make a record, maybe because it's just showing growth, maybe, or confidence. Hopefully.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
probably the goal, hopefully.
I mean, it feels like it tailors life experience as well. So that's probably a big part of it too,
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
as we live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were describing this album as like the oldest one, but I don't think it's old.
More mature.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
more
know.
mature, but
Yes.
it doesn't feel out of place, if that makes sense. Like it doesn't
Cool.
feel like it can't keep up with the group. It feels like if
Cool.
anything, it leads the group, you know?
Leads the group. I love that. Yeah, they're not winded. They're not out of breath.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And I was gonna
No.
say my favorite song, Secret, the production and the melodies, bulletproof.
Thank you.
Why wasn't this a single? And like, and how did you end up picking the singles for this record?
So Secret is, I feel like, the bulletproof song. I think we intentionally started the record campaign last year with Favorite Days. You know, we were on the major label system until around 2017. Obviously 2020, when we put out I Can Feel You Forgetting Me, it was a terrible time for all intents and purposes, but also a terrible time to put out an album and promote it. So I felt like with this one, it was sort of like, let's experiment with putting out a song that maybe wouldn't be like the identifiable hit, but maybe it sets the tone for what we're trying to do. And I think Favorite Days is a great tone setter. It's sort of a blast, and it kind of ranty, and it asks a lot of the questions that I'm asking throughout the album anyway. Bad Dreams always just felt like a nice, obvious Neon Trees song. And I loved its sexuality, and I love that it feels almost like a sister song to Sleeping with a Friend in a way. And that was sort of the kind of headspace that we were in when we decided to go with Bad Dreams, which is great. It's still like climbing at radio. We've always been a long, like, slow burn band. I think it took like 43 weeks for Animal to get to number one. So for me, it's like always trusting the process and the patience of it. Obviously radio means something completely different than it did, you know, in 2010. But I think Secret, I think my team was afraid of it, or is afraid of it. Like,
they should be. It's so good.
It's too pop or something. And I'm like, I hate when people that maybe aren't songwriters throw in too many opinions, because it's like, stop classifying what genre it fits in. That's so irrelevant, especially for music listeners these days. I've been listening to the record since it's been out, because there's something about once it's out and everyone has access to it, it almost sounds different, at least for me.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you got to listen to it with other people's ears.
Totally.
Once it's out, you're like, what is someone who finds on Discover Weekly going to think? What is someone who doesn't realize this is the same Neon Trees as Animal and Everybody Talks going to think?
For sure.
What's this number one fan going to think? So you have to think about it those ways.
Yeah. And it makes it, I don't know, it makes it feel new, because I've been living with these, you know, in mix world for almost over a year. So it's anyway, like Secret, it almost felt like, I don't know, I don't think it's identical, but almost like to what Sabrina's doing with Taste, or Chapel's doing with some of her pop rock moments. There's this sort of comeback around to that pop rock sensibility on these big pop girl records. And that's our heart, and that's sort of the soul of the band, is we are a tried and true pop rock band. And I've always been really excited and inspired by pop, even, you know, 15 years ago when it was a dirty word and when it was sort of like not as focused. So it feels kind of edifying to be like, cool, Secret kind of sounds like a song that could be in the moment. And in my way, it's just a sign or a sort of reflection that I need to listen to this beating heart and not worry about like the think tank that sometimes comes around albums and shit like that. I don't think it's too late either. I think that's what's kind of fun about the modern era of music, is that a song from 5 years ago could pop off. So to me, I don't think it's necessarily too late for it to get its moment.
No, I don't think so either. No.
I mean, the album just came out.
Yeah. Of course, you know, it's been clear that Neon Trees songs have always straddled the line between pop and rock very consistently. And is that a conscious effort on your part, or does it just naturally pair well with your writing and, you know, any sort of arrangement that you gravitate to?
You know, on this album specifically, I got to really play with different producers and sounds, because it's what I dove into, especially during the pandemic, where I felt like everything was out of control. The one thing I could control was writing, and I made all kinds of different sounding records to get to the point where this body of work sort of elevated itself. But I think like the way I write is just, it has to have some sort of essential hook.
Mm-hmm.
It has to have some sort of point of view. If the lyrics fly off my head really quick, I think it's a great sign when I'm not like painstakingly crafting it. I've been in that process too, and I think that's an important process too, where some songs take days upon days to finish. There's just something really like effortless about these songs that I gravitated towards. And then I think when the band gets in the studio and gets on the music, it just becomes Neon Trees, where I did a solo record in 2016 and the band played on it. I probably could have been a Neon Trees record, but I think without the band, it almost sounds a little different. I don't know. I think it is always being really focused on what is this band and what is the world we play in. And it just happens to be the 70s and 80s and that whole minefield of things that you can sort of grab from, because it's such a vast era of music and such an experimental era of music. Obviously, we see that in mainstream pop for the last 10, 15 years. It's just been constantly mined, that sort of era of pop music, and it still feels fresh.
Would you ever consider releasing another solo album? I wanted to talk about that.
I consider it. I think I have to have something to say that's separate.
Okay, yeah.
At the time, everyone was Mormon in the band, and I was defiantly leaving it. I was coming out. The Mormon church served no purpose to me anymore. And I wanted to dismantle it. And I chose to do that on my solo record with my name on it, my opinions and my feelings. And it felt like at the time, sometimes I had to be separate from Neon Trees, because at that period of our career, we weren't seeing eye to eye. There was a lot of difference in the way we lived our lives, and it made it really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And the last, I would say, 6 years have been a journey in getting back to who we are and accepting each other again. And a Neon Trees record now doesn't feel as separate. That's not to say like I wasn't honest on all the Neon Trees records thus far, but I just feel like there's less need for me to have to put my name on it when I say something off color, or when I'm sort of explicitly gay in a record, or when I'm sort of questioning God or questioning spirituality, because I think the core unit of Neon Trees is way more aligned in that these days. So I don't feel the need. So to answer your question, if I had a purpose or something really experimental or something that I want to do completely different, I would probably channel that into a solo record. But it was also at the time I was on Island and they wanted me to do a solo record, and it sounded really exciting after 3 Neon Trees records to do something. And then simultaneously my life was turned upside down, and I channeled just all of that energy into that record. So it was such a special time. I would definitely not make the same solo record or the same thematics on it, for sure.
Yeah. So. This is probably not super niche lore, but I'm a huge Red Hot Chili Peppers fan. I don't know if you're a fan as well.
I love them, of course,
yeah. Oh yeah, no, they're wonderful. I just had the pleasure of seeing them this summer. Amazing. Oh, yeah. But it just reminds me of their era where, John Frusciante left the band and then he created some solo projects. He was struggling, with his own issues, and other people in the band had struggles too, notably Anthony. And then they got back together and now they all play together again, and everything is just, it's different, and it's sort of like old times, but also like new old times. Yeah. So it sort of just has a bunch of parallels there, some obvious differences, but yeah, it just made me think of that.
Oh, I appreciate that. I mean, I think it's rad that we've been a band now for 15 years professionally, and we found each other at every turn. And I don't know how many bands can say that, especially the original lineup. Because I can see it even after 5 years and a couple records, what are we doing? Like, what's the point of this? And so for us to like still have that real inclination and urge to want to continue to do it, it makes it feel authentic and not just like it's time to do another record cycle. It makes it feel like we're really excited for it. So.
Oh, good. And would you say your friendships and, ability to work together has only gotten, more nuanced and
better,
and stronger over the years? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't the tea, but it's Elaine and I have been the most polar opposite throughout the band. And yet we like adore each other and can make each other laugh like no one else. But I think lately in the last few years, we've just really found each other in a really vulnerable space. And I feel way more connected to her after this long than almost anyone, which is really exciting.
It's nice, like, especially after like a decade of friendship to
Yeah.
really then find another reason to connect with someone. That's incredible.
I don't know. We just find more and more commonalities than less, which is really nice.
Oh, good. Growing together and not apart. So cute.
You revealed in 2020 that Everybody Talks was about an ex-girlfriend spreading rumors that you were gay.
Yeah.
That's such a fucked up thing to have happened, but I believe it.
Insane.
Writing it down in a song, knowing you were gay and knowing that no one else knew, was so bold.
Yeah.
When that became such a massive hit, were you like nervous almost? Like, were you almost like, oh, not this song?
I don't know. I was always hidden in plain view, I think. And that's more of a self-deprecating joke than anything. Because, like, you know, when I came out, a lot of people were like, oh, well, we already knew. And I was like, fuck off. You want a medal? Like, you
And it's
knew.
like the worst. And it's like, okay, so
Yeah.
you just knew I was lying to you.
Yeah, it totally.
Right.
Totally. And to your point, though, like, it is fucked up that she sort of spread the rumor and, like, kind of was a bully about it. But it was also, I think about how it was a little fucked up that I was closeted and couldn't come out and maybe deceived some of my girlfriends in my 20s. Not that I was actively doing that, and that's probably a whole other podcast or conversation, but but it is like I can sit back now and go, I also wasn't being completely honest, whether or not life or culture or my life at the time was even permitting that. But it was, and I wasn't nervous about the song.
Do you feel like people caught on to the message at the time?
Yeah, I think it was more just like a gossip record, like a song about
gossiping that starts gossiping. I love that.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
I mean,
totally.
little me thought it was about spilling tea. So for
Spilling
whatever
tea.
that's worth, yeah, it was all about the tea.
You know,
Really
it's
is,
funny.
yeah.
When I was a kid, so I was like in a band and I was like questioning my own sexuality at the time. And we would cover occasionally Everybody Talks in the band.
Oh, cool.
So it was like,
Full circle.
like you said, like glass closet.
There are levels.
Yeah, little did I know just how ironic that was.
It's like an onion.
Yeah.
Very onion.
So like I remember thinking like, you know how like when you're going through something and you listen to a song that's pretty vague and you're like, oh, I can relate it to anything that's going on in my life. I was like, oh, I guess it could relate to that thing that's going on in my life, not knowing that that's exactly what it was about.
What it was, I know.
Yeah.
Right.
They also covered it. I mean, not just me, but Glee covered it. And I love to ask people this question. What was it like seeing yourself covered on a show like that?
That was cool. Darren Chris was a legitimate fan. We played at Terminal 5, I think, in 2011.
Oh, I love Terminal 5.
Yeah, it was great. And he came backstage and he was just like so stoked on us. And at the time I could feel that genuine love. And so when I think they did Animal and Everybody Talks, you get a song covered on an episode of Glee, and it was almost like a stamp of like, this is a new classic, or it's just a moment, you know.
It's like having your song in an Apple commercial.
Yeah, our merch girl, she's 24, 25, and that's how she got into Neon Trees when she was a kid, was like watching Glee. So
I love that.
I remember at the time there were so many artists that were like, oh no, and like poo-pooed that, or would poo-poo like being on a Twilight soundtrack or something. And now it's like, bitch, you missed your moment.
Yeah.
That was just like that moment too, where it was like so many people were trying to be cool, but what was cool was like getting your shit heard. And like,
yeah.
And we're still standing because of that, like just being part of the moments that maybe seemed to pop at the time. Because that was another thing, like, you know, 2008 to 2013 was this just era of like pretension, especially in rock music, let alone being a gay man in rock music, but like just being in rock bands and having to kind of play that world. It was very misogynist and very like retrograde, in my opinion. So what's refreshing about a decade plus later is how embraced and mainstream pop is, and how cool it is, you know.
And I think, you know, not only your music, but your story too has definitely had an impact on LGBT youth.
Thanks.
I imagine some people might think of you as a mentor or a figure to look up to. So like, how do you feel about that? Like, you know, is it a place you ever saw yourself being, especially in the beginning of the band? I'm
mentally ill, so I get very uncomfortable when people put me in a role model position. That's not to like laugh at my own shit or to laugh at anyone else's, but I think I'm grateful that I may have made a record or a song that someone was moved by, or that said something with a microphone that changed someone's perspective. Like that's rad. But the onus of having to be perfect for somebody is really, it gives me a lot of anxiety. What I find genuinely exciting is when, especially with religion, like when someone can speak to that experience because that was a language that I spoke. That's what makes it really profound, is when so many people just want acceptance and love. And that's the root of why we feel the way we feel. It's like we want those faith spaces to have room for us. And yet they're so adamant and not allowing us. To me, when I've been able to like even make a little bit of that needle move or make people feel like they don't need that organized religion or that faith expression to thrive and be a spiritual person, I think that to me is exciting. So it's less about the role model aspect. It's more like when I can just be maybe a mirror to somebody or say something that they haven't been able to say.
Like an avatar almost of.
Sure. Oh, that's a perfect way to say it. Yeah.
Well, we have a game prepared for you. This is Song Interrogation.
Oh.
I promise you it's not nearly as scary as it sounds. It's going off of the tracks of all of your albums. I'm going to use the titles as some jumping off points for some silly rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. So first off, you have a song called Animal. What's your favorite animal?
Oh, sloth.
I love that you just knew that right off the top of your head.
And then it came out and I was like, a sloth?
Not with the unsure face.
Yeah, you were like, did I really just say that?
You just like let it rip.
They're so chill and docile, and they have those giant claws, but you've never heard of them like hurting anyone.
It's true, actually. Wow.
Yeah.
So you have a song called Bad Dreams. What was the worst dream you've ever had?
I have a reoccurring, I mean, I've had violent dreams, but you know how you like kind of forget dreams after you wake up? I have a reoccurring one. Yep. You did mention, this is not to go full circle moment, but you did mention I did Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
And that is my reoccurring dream, that I get like a call and I have an hour to go back in the costume and I have to remember the whole track and beat for beat and like remember all the lines, and they're just pushing me out on the stage and I'm a complete sweat mess because I've completely gone blank. Like if you asked me today to go perform Kinky Boots, I would remember aspects of it, of course, but that is my biggest fear, is being completely unprepared for something that I take super seriously. So that is probably the worst dream I've had in recent memory.
Oh, anxiety dreams are the worst.
I know. I get that exact one all the time where I'm like out on stage and it's this like pirate play and I'm like, what character am I playing? Like, what am I doing? And I'm like suddenly in front of everyone and I'm like, am I supposed to say something?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It
ultimately comes from a place of like, you obviously take shit seriously, especially art and expression. And so not being prepared for something like that, oh my God.
So next question, you have a song called I Love You But I Hate Your Friends. So to what degree can you judge someone based on their friends?
So hard. I don't know. If the people that the company you keep or like who you are, essentially. I don't know. I mean, my guitar player, Chris, for example, we call him like the orphanage for Misfit Toys or whatever, because he just he sort of collects like the most random motley group of people. Because he's the like kindest person over me. And I'm a kind, empathetic person, but I have a lot of discernment. And I will not let you in too close unless you've really earned it. Does that sound crazy? But it's sort of like I just am really discerning with the group of friends. So when I see friends, I'm really judgmental sometimes of inside. I'm not wild and crazy, but I'm a bit like, you really like, I lose respect for people. I'm like, you really want to spend time with that person?
Right. Like if I meet one of your friends and they are so mean-spirited or they're just, have that toxic way about them, I'm like, why are they here? Like, what does this person do to you? Because there's no way they're any better to you. That's crazy. Like, and why would you want them to treat other people that way, especially when they don't know them? That's crazy to me. I don't know.
My favorite compliment to get, and every time I get this, I'm like a ray of sunshine for like 3 days, is I love your friends.
Yeah.
Oh, so you have a song called Past Life. What do you think is the most likely past life you've lived before?
Ooh.
Like if you had to bet on a past life, and let's say like if you get this right, you get to choose what you do in your next life. The stakes are high.
I don't know. I was either a French prostitute.
Incredible.
Like Les Mis vibes. Or I feel like I was either something like a sexual job or like a clown, like a court jester.
What about both? A sexual clown?
Or a sexual clown, yeah.
Yeah. Pennywise, but slutty.
Slutty Pennywise. There you go.
Girl rocking up to the Halloween party is slutty Pennywise.
Wait, low key, I have face paint back there.
Hey.
Hear me out.
What can I flip the question on you? Like, what would be yours? Because like, I feel like my answers were terrible, but those were like authentically what popped in my head.
I can share with the class.
Share with the class.
I think I would have been like, obviously, when we think of the Renaissance era of art, we think of all the, famous male painters. It's a lot of that, sculptors. It's mostly men. I would have been my own Renaissance artist. Yeah. I love art. I love to create. I'm not sure what medium I would probably paint, but I'd probably do ceramics too. I don't know. But yeah, definitely something along that realm, or maybe some sort of whore, which we love sluts in this house. So
or slutty witch, yeah.
Is that the vibe you get from me?
No, I thought you said witch, so then I was just conflating slut and witch. And
I mean, hey, I'll take it. I love it.
You got coven vibes, yeah, for sure.
Love that.
Best thing I've ever heard. It's going in my Instagram bio. Thank you.
I think I was probably like some sort of salesman.
A used car salesman, you scumbag.
I would have been one of those like fools who like believed in the cause. You know what I mean? I would be selling people something, and because I feel like I have some like untapped potential there. I feel like I really could if I wanted to.
That's cool.
You have a song called New Best Friend. So what's usually the thing that makes you realize that someone's going to be your friend for life?
Well, I think everything sort of has a time and a place and a season. Now I'm sounding cliche again, but I think an indicator is just the sense of humor just can connect like that, and the silliness and sort of the yes-anding and the back and forth. If that's effortless and exciting and really fun and the banter's fun, that's a real good indicator that, someone's going to be in my life for a while. Not always the case, because sometimes you burn fast and bright and then you fade out. But I like the idea of humor being the most important thing to me. It is, because at the end of the day, like at the worst things that happen to you, if I'm able to laugh with somebody and they are getting where I'm coming from, it's my favorite thing in the world. So
if you can't laugh through it, how can you cry through it?
Exactly. Yeah. Yes.
I'm all about the giggles, so I hear you.
I love
completely.
that, all about the giggles. And now we've come to the last part of our show, our top 5. This is where we list our top 5 of a certain category. And this episode's theme is top 5 band names. So not including Neon Trees in this, obviously, because we always do these top 5s without bias. So my number 5 is going to be, this is a wild top 5, because I definitely considered a lot of older acts like ABBA and Nirvana and Guns N' Roses, but I think these ones are all 21st century. So the number 5 is Hot Shell Ray.
Oh, love.
It's so fun to say.
Like, what does it mean?
Exactly. It just sounds fun. And then Vampire Weekend.
Love that band.
We've had Rostam on the show before. Love Vampire Weekend. And I also just love how like kind of weird and kind of spooky it sounds. I don't know. And then number 3 is like a pop duo, so it's not really a band, but it's the Veronicas.
Love.
Cool.
Lisa and Jessica, neither of them named Veronica. It was just so iconic that they're just like, yeah, we're twins and we're both named Veronica. Like, what a gimmick.
Yep, it's like, I mean, the duo Joan. Neither of them are named Joan. They don't know anybody named Joan. Trust me, I've asked. Like, this is just wild.
But also, yeah, I don't know. It's so funny. It's like to make everyone assume that you're twins with the exact same name and you're identical twins is so funny. Okay, number 2, Paramore.
OT.
Yeah, it just sounds like the perfect band name. I don't even know what that word means.
It's something to do with like love, but it feels like an 18th century limerick word. I don't know.
Yeah, it does. It does. So Hot Shell Ray, Vampire Weekend, the Veronicas, Paramore, and then 303. And especially with the spelling,
love.
And especially with this.
Yes.
The thing where you spell out with your hands, the 303 logo.
Right.
Amazing.
Reed, do you want to go next?
Sure. My number 5 is The Who, because like, imagine if they never had a hit. Like, the who the fuck is that? Like, it's a wild name. I love it.
That's a vulnerable ass band name too, though, because like Who, like
right, like who, like
absolutely.
it invites so much shade, but it's so simple at the same time.
And it's not confusing like if it was just Who, because then it'd be like it's by Who. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's by The Who, and you're like, oh, okay, I know.
Right. It's like when people are like, what does IDK mean? I don't know. It's like that sort of back and forth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So my number 4, and I know this is a Monty Python reference, but I don't care because it literally sounds insane. Toad the Wet Sprocket.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh.
hello?
Yeah.
What? Like, I mean, all I want is a banger. So, you know, huge shout out to them. Have been on board forever. But like, what is that? Like, it's just one of those things you see and you're like, did I ingest acid, you know, like without knowing? My number 3 is Fall Out Boy because, like, first of all, what the hell does that mean? Second of all, does it have an opposite? Like, you know, trip in girl? Like, what? Like, I don't know. It never made sense to me, but I love it all at the same time. And obviously I love their music too. Number 2, sort of related, Panic at the Disco. So memeable. Also, like, I may or may not have panicked at a disco like once or maybe like 5 times. So like, I get it.
Are you with the exclamation point or without the exclamation point?
Personally, I'm with.
I love the with. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? I honestly, Kesha $, that's also my choice.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm with the symbols there. My number 1, though, huge shout out to them. The Last Good Night. They had a couple of hits. To my dudes from Enfield, Connecticut. I love the band name because sometimes I go to bed and I'm like, damn, this is going to be the last good night. I feel like I'm going to die. You know, when you're like super drunk and you're like, am I going to wake up tomorrow? That's the vibe. My honorary mention is Duran Duran because also, what does that mean?
I will throw out an honorary mention too. I just thought of them, the Cheetah Girls.
Love.
Hello.
Yes.
I love when they go, Cheetah. And then they wear like leopard print, and it's so funny because it's not actually cheetah. Iconic. All right, Tyler, your turn.
I would say number 5. I'm a big The band name. So like The Strokes, I think is a fucking cool band name. The Killers, I think that's one of the coolest band names. It was also, they got their name from a New Order music video.
Oh.
New Order's music video, in that they were a band called The Killers, and that's how they named their band. Just a little fun fact.
Incredible lore.
Psychedelic Furs, just because they are one of my favorite bands, but I just think it's so evocative and, I don't know, kind of sexy sounding. And then The Faint, I think, is a great band name. And then No Doubt, one of the cooler bands.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wait. Oh, that's a game changer.
We all edit our lists.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's a great one.
Rolls off the tongue. Really cool. I think the logo looks really cool. So No Doubt. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. Very fun. Very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, this was awesome. Thank you so much, Tyler, for coming on the show. Thank you so much, Ree, for joining us. And if you like this podcast, make sure to rate and review us wherever you're listening to us. And if you didn't like this podcast, I have no idea why you listened to the entire thing. So that's really on you. And I'll see you next time.